welcome to episode 3, where we are going to talk all about our spiritual evolution. So, Evolve. Again, this is a #1 podcast all about relationships. This episode, Greg and I are going to dive in about our relationship with our spirituality. That means individually as well as a couple. So let's not wait. Let's jump in, get started, and see how we have evolved spiritually.
Hey guys, welcome to this episode of, well, my wife is telling me 3. So this, I'm supposed to give it this introduction here, so I'm probably going to fail miserably. But anyway, this is our
not a test.
Our spiritual evolution story.
Yes.
Yes, I got it right. And I just want to do some disclaimers. We honestly don't want to point fingers at anybody or blame anything or
step on toes,
or we just want to tell you our path and how we got to where, well, maybe not totally our path, every aspect of the path, but just a brief aspect so you get to know a little bit more about us and how we got to here. And really what our worldview is at this point, because that has evolved immensely. It has. And so from a just want to say that we're not trying to offend anybody, really. We just want to share what we have, and so that's the disclaimer. Also, could get a little PG-13 or better, or maybe even rated R. So
I mean, that's not the motivation. I don't know.
No,
we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens.
You never know, episode to episode, what's going to come out of us.
So,
it is not scripted. We don't ever script these ahead of time as far as write every
so
detail
far we
out.
haven't anyway. So
I mean, we might find out we should if
Right?
it gets toxic on us or something. But yeah, so let's dive in. What we're going to do is kind of pick up, if you have already listened to episode 2, that was the origin story of how we met. So you know, if you've heard that already, we met through church and through ministry. And that was in a Word of Faith denomination, a Christian belief. Let me say this too. I think there's over 30,000 or more different sects, like SECTS, of Christian denominations. And we've been through, when we were making a little bit of a list here, especially I have been through a good amount of these. So Word of Faith was just one of those sects, and that's where we met, was in that belief system, which, would you say it's fair to say it's known as like a name it and claim it? Would you say that's kind of a focus of that?
no, I guess that's what we may have called it, or
maybe that's how we interpreted that in time in
Word
the
of Faith.
season in there?
They are a Word of Faith based church. Yeah. So, Word of Faith we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
What is Word of Faith, or do you?
I think I was just saying, like, trying to, for anyone who maybe is like, what is that? I mean, we don't really have the time to flesh out the doctrines of every sect, because honestly, I couldn't even tell you that I knew them all really well. I don't know if you could, but like Word of Faith was just where we met, and kind of that was the beginning of our relationship.
Yeah.
But to back up just a little bit, we both were born into Baptist homes.
Right.
You might know Southern Baptist, and like some of them are, they're louder churches typically. I don't know if yours was, but
No, mine was
conservative too.
Pretty conservative
in North America, like Northeast coast. It was pretty conservative. You did not raise your hands or
I think
sing
one lady
anything
was
but a psalm.
it was really small. It was actually the same church my father went to when he was younger in Florida.
So we were both born essentially on the pew, so to speak. Like,
Yeah,
from
like
the time you were little, you were going to church.
My
correct?
dad helped physically construct the church that we went to when I was a kid, and the youth group had like 5 kids in it. It wasn't big at all.
Yeah, I don't even think the Baptist church that I went to even had. I know we had children's church, like a lot. So yeah, I was born into Baptist, and then my mom, at the time, was a single mom. So from there, she had been exposed, is that the right way to say it? Like to praying in tongues and raising of the hands and I don't know, some more demonstrative
Yeah, that
faiths
was you
and
were,
stuff.
that
And
was,
that's when she ended up leaving the Baptist church to become Pentecostal.
Yeah, that was
And my mom was raised,
witchcraft.
ironically, yeah, at the time, that's
my
what
mom. Yeah, that's
everyone thought, oh, that's witchcraft and it's horrible. But actually, both of our families, both of our moms were raised Catholic.
right. Yeah.
So they left Catholicism and went to Baptist.
Well, I had actually gone to a couple masses with my mom early. I remember.
Eating the wafer.
I don't know. I don't think I ever. I was that young. I was actually. All I can remember is being asked
To be quiet.
to leave. My mom dragging me out of the church because I wasn't very good. I
Yeah,
guess.
the ADHD was already there and effective in church services, I'm sure, at 2 years old. But
All I knew, I wasn't allowed to play in the playground after the service.
because you was a bad boy.
Yeah.
But so yeah, it's ironically both of our moms came from Catholicism. They left to go to Baptist, and when both I think parents left to go to Baptist, their parents were quite upset. Like, oh, you can't go. That's horrible. You're leaving the faith, and it's
Yeah.
any adjustment you make spiritually. So if you've ever made any spiritual adjustment and your family has been way against it, we know how it feels. Our parents know how it feels.
Yeah.
So yeah, my mom went from Baptist to Pentecostal, which made her even more wacko. As far as not my point of view, not my point of view, but like in her families or anybody who, was from Baptist or Catholic, it's just, you didn't go there. Pentecostal was scary. And I will just say, I do have a little bit of trauma from it because I was a child, and I've told you some of these stories that like, there would be people shaking and screaming. That's the first time I've ever seen what's called falling out in the spirit, trembling. So you're a child and you're observing these things happening in a service. People are sobbing, like, people are getting their demons cast out, and you're a kid, and this is just terrifying.
For just a side note, just to interrupt you.
Sure.
Yeah, they fully, and we, each one of these stages that we've talked about, fully believed
Absolutely.
everything that was
Yeah.
going on, and so, sadly sometimes, but, yeah. So, did everybody? I don't know.
Did everyone who was attending, well, everyone who goes to Catholic church doesn't necessarily believe everything they
Right,
do.
right,
Or,
right.
it just, sometimes we just say I'm Irish Catholic because that's what my mama was, or I'm Jewish because
Right,
my dad was, or my
right.
mom. Like, we don't necessarily practice. But in our lives, at
Well,
least so far.
As far as my growing up until I'm meeting you, being like serious about that.
like, so
was-
you didn't go to youth group and that kind of
Oh
stuff.
yeah, we went to youth
Oh,
group.
oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
but I don't remember taking any of it seriously. I mean,
See, and this is
our
where-
family, it was just like something we did. We went to church. It was the right thing to do.
Right.
My parents came home. I mean, like I said, you had Bible study every night and all this stuff going on.
Pretty much, yeah. I remember my mom reading us Bible stories even at bedtime. Well, your
We-
mom didn't do that? Like, read Bible stories at bedtime and stuff? That you can remember. We're
I'm-
going by your memory, not necessarily facts, but...
I can't remember a Bible. Well, in Sunday school you learn.
No,
Bible
at
st-
home.
No, we.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we
Yeah,
watched,
one of my biggest temper tantrums was when my mom was a single mom, and I didn't get to read the Bible story first that night. And of course, there was other trauma stuff going on, but that was one of my biggest, because we sat and read that big children's illustrated Bible. But then after she got married, I think she got married. Yeah, she did marry again, and they married in the Pentecostal church. So they both had that belief of like, cast out demons. And like I've shared with you in the past, like I have memories, and there were times where we would go to other believers' houses for like deliverances. That
Would you
would be
say
the
that
word.
every night of the week your parents
No,
or your family
no,
were doing something?
not that often, but they
3
were just
times a
very
week?
serious. We had devotions every night.
Every night.
And even if we were in bed, because like when we got older, we definitely as kids we learned like, let's go to bed so we're not going to be part of devotions. We would get pulled out of bed and told to sit and listen to devotions most nights. And that was my my mom's husband. That was his thing. That was he was adamant about. But I remember as a kid in the Pentecostal movement, that we would go to people's houses who also believed for these deliverance sessions, or maybe we were there for fun and they turned into deliverance. I don't know. But there was like people throwing up in bags. There was people, like the kids we'd be put in a certain room, and then they would put olive oil or some kind of oil and like quote unquote make it the blood of Christ. So that demons wouldn't pass the threshold and come to us. Like, these are the memories I have. So I grew up very, very afraid of the devil, very afraid of the dark. I didn't realize how scared I was of some of these until I started unpacking some of this,
Yeah.
religious trauma prior. But after
That's where I'm thankful. Like I
Yeah.
look back at my
you didn't have as
family.
much to unlearn.
No, I really didn't.
Oh my
I mean,
gosh.
like I said, I think I said this before. But the most we did is, as far as I can remember. Now, my mom
Sure,
might call
might
me
have a
and
different
just-
story.
My mom might hear this, and I might get in so much trouble. But it probably will. But all I can remember is saying, you know, our we prayed before every meal.
But not even a like different prayer every night.
No, God is great. No,
Yeah.
seriously, God is great. God is good. Let us thank Him for our food. Amen.
Oh, I
That
remember
was it.
our
'Cause
family prayers.
We
Oh,
weren't
so
allowed.
long.
We
so
were not
long.
allowed to speak at the table. I could not talk. At the
Oh,
table.
we talked a ton. Yeah,
I
we
couldn't
did
talk
talk,
at this.
and but our prayer time was just we would roll our eyes and be.
you
so,
had
like,
all you had religion as a set of rules in your home. I had the most
Yeah.
ridiculous, asinine rules in my home.
in your opinion.
In my
Sure.
opinion,
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
and I've already
Oh, yeah.
expressed these things, and I mean, I wasn't allowed.
Oh, we got a lot to
I
unpack.
wasn't allowed to go into my refrigerator other than to get water until ever.
Yeah.
Now even.
We're gonna unpack some childhood traumas later in another episode. But to stay on topic,
Oh yeah. Okay.
like after
we digress bad there.
my family moved from north east
Should
and to
probably
the
be
southeast.
more than one episode. I
Yeah,
think.
it's possible we might not be able to get this done all tonight. But my family, after we moved from the northeast to the southeast, we ended up attending an Assembly of God. That was when I, by that time, was. Oops, excuse you.
Sorry.
By that
coffee
time-
while you're talking. there.
Sure, if you can
I'll
want to make me some
chime in.
tea.
I'll chime in if you like.
Sure. I'm going to just fill in some gaps here for myself because, yeah, we both started in a
You're just
Baptist
catching up
foundation.
to where I'm at, where you and I met anyway, right?
Yes.
For you, okay.
So between our Baptist foundation and we met at Word of Faith, I had, gone through the Pentecostal movement with my parents and family and then Assembly of God. That's where I started attending youth group and things like that. And let me just say this. In the Assembly of God, there was, like I said, my first youth experience years later running into some kids from that youth group. They asked me, hey, were you abused by the youth pastor? And I was like, no, why? What the heck? Come to find out, the youth pastor at that place was sexually abusing and assaulting some of the girls. So some chaotic trauma. It comes out of everything here. For me, it feels like, thankfully, I was not abused by this person at that place, but there was just some stuff going on that people didn't know and covered under the guise of spirituality and charisma. So from there, our family, we left there and ended up at Word of Faith. And that's kind of where Greg and I pick up as far as connecting and diving into this belief system. And that's where I want to say too, Gregory, that like for both of us, by this point, by the Word of Faith point where I'm an older teen and you are in your 30s, I guess, 33, would you say?
Yeah.
That this was not like just go to church and call it done, check it off your list. This was a lifestyle of a deep religion for both of us, or a relationship, not even deep religion, relationship, especially for myself. Like I didn't have any good male connections in my life. I have two quote unquote fathers, but neither of them put much time, affection, or attention for whatever reasons into me. They had their own life and trauma and troubles and struggles going on. So I very early in the Baptist early foundation years of my life made God my dad. So this was no joke for me. So I don't want you to think that like, oh, where you came from and where you ended up was just, that was gonna happen. No way. Would you have ever thought like 20 years ago that we would be having this discussion about an evolution of our spiritual faith?
Oh God, no.
Yeah, no.
No, and at the time that I came into the picture, like I had hit rock. I think I've said this in previous episode. I had hit rock bottom in my life. I had come back home and ended up in an apartment complex, and that's where we met you. I met you.
Right.
But I had so much stuff that I had stopped doing. I had to replace all that time and
Like,
energy.
what do you mean? What do you mean? Stuff you stopped doing?
I stopped smoking pot. I stopped drinking. I
drinking.
stopped smoking cigarettes. I stopped womenizing. I mean, I just stopped all those things, and
You needed something to fill.
I needed something to fill. So I went into deep study of the Word of God, and
Yeah.
so I went
Well,
to Bible school. I went to this and that, and I really took it seriously.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and but the one thing I was always looking for truth. always. And
See, and I was born, I feel like, spiritual. I just
Right.
I've had different sensitivities. I've just known things. I would be as a child, and we'll touch on this on another episode because of sexual abuse as a very young age inside my home. Outside was my safe space. I loved to be in the forest with the rocks, the trees, the animals, the wildlife. That was safe space for me. So I felt like I always could easily commune with God outdoors. So, like I said, I feel like I was born spiritual, just so hungry for connection with something bigger than myself. So yeah, we met at Word of Faith. So let's pick it up from there at that point and kind of go. And where did we go after that? Okay, so do you want to kind of go and pick up where, like, Word of Faith? We left off in episode 2, if you were paying attention to that we got suspended, removed,
Right.
because we were dating and then got married. Do you want to kind of tell them what happened
so briefly,
a year after that? After marriage?
Briefly with that, in that situation, after being married and still attending the same church, family, everything, and the church actually growing and becoming, whatever. A year later, actually, no, we were actually going to go to Rhema.
Rhema's a Bible school
Bible
in
school.
like Oklahoma. Yeah.
And so
Specifically for the Word of Faith denomination,
About-
which we were part of at the time.
about a year, not even a year after that expelling,
We were married. We got
We got
yeah.
married. I would say within a couple months after being married, we were on our way to do. We had all that planned, and the pastor.
And that was hard for me because, like, you had to wear dress and pantyhose, and, like, there was a very distinctive roles that you had to play and be
yeah.
at this Bible college, and I was, like, really struggling with that. Like, I don't want to go. It's in a place I don't want to live. And then we got a phone call
Right, and
from
just
the pastors
pastor,
and said,
he
come
wants-
down. And we're like, oh, God, last time we got this kind of phone call,
Yeah.
it wasn't good.
So anyway, long story short, they asked us to stay and become the youth pastors there, and so we did. And for about 7.
Oh, no, not that long, because we ended up, that was maybe like 3 or 4 years or something like that. We stayed there, and we led the youth group, and we did summer camps. So, I mean, this was our life. So we were at church 2, 3, 4 times a week. I don't even know.
Right.
And we were constantly planning, and we were still studying. I mean, that's how we ended up, together, was studying scripture and stuff together, and we just kept growing and evolving through all that.
I did end up going to the Bible college, as that was the deal. I would stay.
Oh yeah,
and
they
be
brought
pastor.
they brought college
So
to
they bought-
the
they
church.
brought- so they had a kind of college
Satellite or some kind of thing
It
like
was
that.
yeah. It was.
I was pregnant
really
at that
high tech
time.
at the time.
Yeah, I was pregnant, so you went and
For
with
its time,
other
it was
friends
pretty
and
high-tech,
family.
yeah, for sure.
So I did not go. You got all those certifications. You graduated from like 2 or 3.
And that was the start where I said, "Whoa, wait a minute."
Ooh, talk about that.
I said that was the start of where I think, instead of being or believing everything I was told about,
Ministry
and
position and
positions, and even the Bible,
Yeah.
they were teaching something different, and it made me question. And when I questioned, I got
In trouble?
yeah, it was a different situation. Anyway, I'm not going to do any of that. I just that's when I started questioning more and more.
Yeah.
And
you were getting frustrated because you would come home. Like I said, I was pregnant and or just had him. He was an infant. And you were kind of coming home sometimes frustrated. Like, gosh, you know what? We're doing this in class, but we ain't doing this in our church.
Yeah.
Like some of the ethics of some of it was that was struggling you.
That's
you were struggling
it's,
with.
It's true. It's true. So I didn't want to go deep into that. But anyway, so that's where I think the start of becoming a questioner more than a
Yeah, that's a good.
and then instead of I really got into what did the word say, and that was your big thing. We always found ourselves in scripture and believed those words, and I started finding out that wow, and the big thing then was the word of God is the infallible.
It
word
is
of God.
perfect. Don't question
it can't
that.
be questioned.
Yeah.
Yet there's 100. Well, we won't,
So much contradictory in it.
we won't go into that. After studying the Bible, I think the other thing, reading the Bible from cover to cover.
Which you don't do that till later, but
Right.
in our
I mean,
timeline.
I studied a lot, but it was always bits and pieces. I had read the whole Bible, but not from cover to cover. I read every
It's
bit of the Bible.
very hard to read cover to cover.
And so I took a year and read it cover to cover, and that was when I think a lot of things changed.
Oh yeah, definitely. But we ended up transitioning out of there, leaving. There was some just stuff happening that we were not okay with. And I will just say, like, manipulation was pretty bad. And
Right.
we were getting hurt really badly. And we even were there sometimes for marriage counseling. And you said, you would always be like, we're not going in again because every time we come out, they blame you. Like, that I was being in trouble.
Yeah.
That, you know, I'm not being a good wife and I need to do better for Gregory and I need to be this. And you're like, you know what? That's not true. I know you knew it. Like, you had responsibility, but it just wasn't being shared in counseling. So there was a lot of things stacking up for us that we were just like, you know what, this is not okay. Some financial things were being done
We figured
not well.
You and I figured early on, very early on in our relationship, probably before we were married, that what you and I decided to do, or what we decided, was always better for us.
Yeah. Well, look
But-
at
but
our
we were-
origin story. Like,
but-
everyone had a different feeling than we had
But
for
always
ourselves.
there was always another opinion about what we should, like an ice cream truck.
Oh,
Sorry,
yeah. We're not even gonna go there.
Not even
Yeah.
bring that up. Anyway, so
Ask
but
me later.
The great news is, after leaving there, we did go to a church that was
And that was-
the integrity was
extremely amazing.
High. I mean,
but we were burned. We were really
burned.
gun shy. We
and
went.
We sat back for a while.
Oh yeah, I remember like the first day. So we went from that was Word of Faith where we said we're out, we're kind of done all this.
That was
we went to
non-denominational.
non-denominational
Yeah,
after
yeah.
that, and that one was just top of the line, excellent people. I have no complaints even to this day about their ethics, their policies, the way they ran things, their transparency.
Yeah.
I remember the first time they had an annual budget meeting. We just were blown away that they were showing this because where
Not
we
just to
came
us,
from,
but the whole
anybody who
anybody that
wanted-
came to the church.
we
And this
came
was
from a
this
place
was
that was
very, very
hiding
large
everything.
church.
Yeah,
So-
and
So, and to speed this process up, we actually became the junior high youth
years, I think a
Yeah.
little bit down the
It-
line, because
yeah.
you wanted to help out our friends who were
Yeah.
amazing friends, and they asked you, you know, we know you were part of that. Would you help us here in the high school? And you ended up going to a few overnights or events.
Well,
and
we had up and coming. My daughters were
true, yeah, your kids were already
are
in
youth,
middle
so
school, high school.
I wanted to be his chaperone. So me and Nikki went to a lot of things because Nikki actually spent more time with the church because she spent more time with us than Jess.
Right. But you were in it first, and you kept asking me, and I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm never getting in this again. Like, I won't put myself in this position where people
It's
can
true.
hurt me.
Never say that. Right?
And one of the days you came up to me after a church service that was very moving and very inspiring, and you're like, we have to do this. And I was still in a belief system that it was God, you, and then me.
Yeah.
And you were too. I mean, you believed you were the
Sure.
authority of the home and you were the final answer and decision. And that was the way we lived our life. And most of the time I wasn't miserable with it. But in this instance, I was like, you know what? Fine. Let's just do it. You want to do it? Let's do it. And we did that. I think we were there 7 years.
Yeah.
Maybe, or more. And really, we had a great support system. They were not micromanaging. I mean, again, everything was ethical, above board, amazing people. But some things in us after like several years started shifting again.
Yeah. Well, the thing that we got good at running ministries and having kids come.
Oh man, we ran the budget. I put together
just-
summer camps from the ground up annually. I mean, it was
we organized
a lot.
a lot of kids coming in
Yeah.
and doing a lot of things. Sunday, Wednesday,
Disney trips annually that we took all these
Camp
new
Col-
kids
I mean,
in.
all those things. It was that too. But why did we say all that?
I don't know where you were going, but what we were talking about was how we started, like, at a certain point, just kind of questioning even that.
Oh,
what
I
we
remember.
were
I was
doing.
going to say we were.
So a friend of ours, this is where we started questioning things, and I wouldn't even say that's what made us question. We were already struggling because we were always reading
That's what I was
scripture.
getting at,
We were
because-
struggling with the disconnect. Like, we were feeling like youth ministry wasn't always being effective.
Well,
Why wasn't it?
We had a bunch of programs going, and we
we
could
had
draw the crowds.
Oh my gosh.
But were they living the life? No. And
It was frustrating because I grew up living the life. So I was like, how do I get these kids to love God and Christ and be committed as much as I am? And it wasn't happening. These kids were so rebellious and so into the world. And so we felt like something's disconnecting. So we started looking into that.
they were good kids. Don't get me wrong.
Some were good kids and some were not good kids. Some are probably in jail today. But we were just like, where's the disconnect? So we felt like church was too much segregated. And I'm not talking race. We got feeling like age. Like our kids
Well, it wasn't
are
until
disconnected from adults who can pour into them. Their own parents
Right.
weren't always available
And
to
when
pour into them.
we had, after Joshua getting grown up a little bit and not, he just came with us instead of getting.
That was our son.
Yeah.
Or is our son.
And so he didn't know any better. He was always a youth. He didn't know any better. So, yeah. And that tape that your friend gave us.
She gave us a video and said, hey, can you watch this and tell me what you think? So we already had these questions in our head
Right.
of like, there's a disconnect here. And then we couldn't find youth ministry in the Bible.
Yeah, I didn't see.
And that frustrated us. There was no real evidence of this segregating.
Not
that
even in the New
when you
Testament,
walk
right.
into church, your kids go to children, these go to youth group, and you go to the adult, and no one, and the elderly go over there. And we're like, why are we separate? We need this. We need this tribal raise. It takes a village to raise a kid. So she gave us a DVD. It was called Divided, and it was all about that, about how
Right.
the church has been divided. I am watching it. We're watching it together. I start crying, and we're just kind of like talking through, like, what's going on? What are we feeling? And it's like, these are the words. Here's what we're talking about. So that,
I think both of us were like in tears when we watched
yeah,
that.
I mean, it was really powerful. So very much resonated, and their concept in this video was to bring back a family church. Do you remember this?
Right.
Like that the whole family stays together in the church. And that got us excited. So we started branching out and having family ministry. We asked,
Right.
our church that was in, and they were so supportive. They were like, absolutely, go for it. So we kind of did that, but we were also doing youth ministry. It wasn't like we stopped. We were doing family ministry. But it really never took off.
And we were getting really burned out.
We were burned.
And having.
We were running a business, raising a family. This was a part-time job because
Nikki
at
had
the
her
same
accident
time,
and-
we had a lot of family stuff going on.
Yeah, a lot of, so we actually I remember the day I went to step down and because the pastor, my boss,
One of the senior pastors of the
came
college
up to me
and stuff. Yeah.
and he says, "Hey Greg, how's everything going in ministry?" And I said, "Well, I'm glad you asked." And I start telling him,
like, we're not doing okay.
we're not doing okay. And I think we were going to have to do something. And he's like, okay.
Oops.
I was just about to ask you if you wanted a promotion.
Like to become, what was it, the
college
college?
and career and move up and do the become on the senior staff kind of thing.
Yeah. And we were so burned out that I was disengaging from things and having you go.
Yeah.
And which was only burning you out more because now you had to carry the weight of everything.
And my dad had died in the middle of all that.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was drinking a lot, even in church. And that was a complete no-no. And
No, there were some of our friends in church were drinking too. Like,
yeah, but
but
not
at church or
it
like,
wasn't. Yeah, but I was coming. I was coming to church pretty.
It depended
intoxicated
sometimes,
sometimes.
but yeah, so that started shifting us. We sat with them, and then we sat with the senior pastors, and they're like, "Hey, listen, it's okay." Like we thought everyone would be mad at us,
Yeah,
just like
yeah.
how when we left the other place, again, night and day differences
Right.
there. And they were so supportive. They're like, "Hey, listen, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
God will always fill the space. If you are supposed to be moving on to something else, don't worry about it." So, at this point, we also had another huge shift. So if you are interested in hearing the rest of the story, we have some more stuff that actually shifts pretty heavily.
Pretty drastically, yeah.
Pretty drastically that
You're-
even our friends didn't see coming when we sat and said, to the senior pastor and our pastors above us, like they didn't even see this coming and they were a little worried about this decision. But we don't have time to finish it in this episode because we want to try to keep these under 30 minutes as best as possible. We all know we don't have a lot of time.
we didn't tell them
and
to subscribe and follow and
like and support and comment
and do that
and maybe
stuff.
you resonate with a part of this story and let us know your thoughts and
Please.
Keep it civil. We're here, we're not trying to say we know the way and the answer and that this is what's right for everyone. We're all searching, we're seeking and still truth seekers. But yeah, tune in for the next second half of this because something a little bit different happens for us that takes us. We think we're going to be expanding our mind on this next
Yeah.
transition, but what happens is, all right, until next time, thank you all so much for being part of our process, our journey, our evolution, and I hope it encourages, inspires, and ignites your own. But someone to say bye?
Yeah, have a good evening. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Well, we tried. We really, truly tried to get that all in that first segment of just 30 minutes, but it is so freaking hard. So tune in next week to hear the second half, the surprising plot twist, I'll say, to what happens. What is this decision that we make that really stuns and shocks and alarms some of our closest friends? And if you are getting a vibe and seeing a pattern here yet, that's what we do, is we make decisions that feel right for us that most people don't agree with. But let me give you the moral of that point is to go with your gut. You do what you need to do for you. So tune in next week to evolve. And until then, be evolving, people.